there were some pretty famous insurrectionary anarchists, both Emma Goldman and Alexander Berkman. He wrote the ABCs to Anarchism. He tried to kill Henry Clay Frick, an industrialist who killed several union members, and that was in 1892. Also, Enrico Malatesta and Luigi Gallieni. Luigi Gallieni, his followers were actually, some of them were Sacco and Vanzetti, two anarchists that were in the Boston area that got tried, not for their anarchists, or not for what they did necessarily, but for their anarchist principles, and because they were linked to this insurrectionary group. But that's a totally different story. Bakunin was also a very, very big person against Marx. It was said that that Marx, his analysis of economics was very, very great. He was really impressed with it a lot. And he actually started to translate Das Kapital into Russia, but he didn't finish it. But he definitely was against Marxist idea of state socialism, especially because he was vehemently against the state. There's a quote in his lecture called Statism and Anarchism. And it says, they, the Marxists, maintain that only a dictatorship, their dictatorship of course, can create the will of the people, while our answer is to this: no dictatorship can have any other aim but that of self-perpetuation, and it can beget only slavery and the people tolerating it. Freedom can be created only by freedom. That is, by a universal rebellion on the part of the people and free organization of the toiling masses from the bottom up. And so they obviously rejected the dictatorship of the proletariat, taking control of the state apparatus and basically eventually getting to communism. Some critiques of Bakunin. In his earlier years, he advocated what was called an invisible dictatorship. It was a letter to Albert Richard, who was also in the Social Democratic Alliance. And he says, there is only one power and one dictatorship whose organization is salutary and feasible. It is that collective, invisible dictatorship of those who are allied in the name of our principle. This dictatorship will be all the more salutary and effective for not being dressed up in any official power or extrinsic character. This was in 1848, I believe. But it was early on when he was still developing his ideas. And basically what that meant is that he advocated for a group of revolutionaries not to have any power in any of the groups, not to have any go for political office, not to go for even unionist offices. What it is just a group of revolutionaries that are dedicated to the principles of anarchy and socialism, and that they push forward the revolution in a way that would be beneficial. In defense, Bakunin was still developing his ideas again, and so he totally rejected this in 1866. As he writes, he says, "We are the most pronounced enemies of every sort of official power, even if it is an ultra-revolutionary power. We are the enemies of any sort of publicly declared dictatorship. We are social revolutionary anarchists. But you will ask, if we are anarchists, by what right do we want to influence the people, and what methods will we use? Denouncing all power, with what sort of power, or rather by what sort of force, shall we direct a people's revolution?" And he says, "By a force that is invisible, that no one admits, and that is not imposed on anyone, by the collective dictatorship of our organization, which will be all the greater the more it remains unseen and undeclared, the more it is deprived of all official rights and significances. Secret organizations would finally have the strength of that close solidarity which binds isolated groups in one organic whole. These groups would not seek anything for themselves, and they would be in a position to direct popular movements. This is what I called the collective dictatorship of a secret organization. And so that came in 1866, and that was a letter to a Russian friend named Sergei Nechayev. Sure. So basically, my personal thought on this is that he was still developing his ideas. So, yeah, he did say for an invisible dictatorship, but he definitely changed, and the way that he put forth his efforts was that not for an invisible dictatorship. He also put forth his efforts in open revolution. And so, yeah. He was also a nationalist. He believed especially in the Slavs, the Slavic people, and participated in several of their different councils and whatnot. The Slavic people are more of Eastern European, like Ukrainians and those kind of things. So that could be a fault, especially in the wider range of anarchism, in that nationalism creates people wanting to help their national government. Nationalism is something that a lot of people can't avoid. I mean, we were born in the United States. We're, U.S. citizens. And at least when we have been raised, we've been raised to love the United States, to, we have the 4th of July, we have flag waving, we have parades and everything else. And so if nationalism is based in our, we were raised on it. And so for him to support nationalist struggles, and for him to support nationalism, in my view, is kind of